Ooh.
And hello, welcome to Four Women in a. Oh, we don't even know how to do it anymore. Welcome to Four Women in a Zoom hotel room. We don't
Oh
even.
no.
Yeah, we can't even do it anymore.
Yeah, it's been a
Wow,
year. We've lost
Sorry.
our mojo.
we've lost everything. Well, we haven't lost everything. We have not lost our grit, our determination, and our ability to gab.
Yes.
I'm Heidi McDonald, the editor in chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com.
I'm Brigid Alverson, the editor of the Good Comics for Kids blog at SLJ and Smash Pages at smashpages.net.
Yeah. I'm Deb Aoki. I write for about manga for Publishers Weekly, and I now am part of a foursome doing a podcast called Manga Splaining, in which we try to convince Chip Zdarsky that manga is not all that bad.
I'm Johanna Draper Carlson. I run comicsworthreading.com and mangaworthreading.com.
And so, as some of our listeners may know, in olden times, in past days, the before times, the four of us used to gallivant around the globe together, going to Comic Cons and sitting in our hotel room and gabbing about things that happened at the show and about books we read and people we met and all the fun things that we used to do. And now we Zoom quite a bit, but I'd talk about things that we're doing at home and HelloFresh and versus Blue Apron and what our cats did and things we watched on Netflix and so on. But anyway, I realized it was a year since Brigid and Johanna and I were together at the last con C2E2 2020. Now, it wasn't really the last con because the San Diego Comic Fest was the week after, but it was the last big megacon. And as I always say, I think it was a hell of a way to go out. But yeah, we had a good. I thought we'd look back just a little bit, maybe, and then just talk about what we've been doing. Bridget and Deb, obviously, and Johanna, you have some manga thoughts, and Johanna can tell us about Sherlock, and so on. So yeah, so girls, how often? Of course, Deb and I went to Europe together. So that was our big travel.
Mm.
But how often do you think back to the last con, the olden days?
I don't know it's specifically the last con I'm remembering, but just generally being able to see friends, go out for good meals, visit other places, all of that. I feel somewhat kind of responsible in a ironic way because this was the year that I was going to start con going. I had stopped going to major cons for like a decade. And last year was the year that I was going to go. I was going to go to London. I was going to go to San Diego for the first time since like 2005 or something like that. And so, well, best laid plans.
Oh, so you jinxed it. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
It's all your
I
fault.
kind of wonder if I jinxed it a tiny bit. But,
They call her Jinx and Johanna. Yeah.
I
Bridget.
love your background, Heidi.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, that was, that used to be our world. Our
Good.
germy con crud filled world. Yeah,
Yes.
Bridget, do you have any thoughts or memories of the last
I
con?
do. I actually was just going through. Went through like 7 years of photos the other day, looking for something which I ultimately did not find. But it was a total trip down memory lane. Usually, this happens when I do my taxes,
Hmm.
and I pull out all the receipts, and I'm like, oh, and here's the time that I had dinner with Johanna and Heidi and Deb. One thing that I noticed going through the photos is that I seem to have lunch with Deb at the beginning of every San Diego Comic Con. Like every year, it starts with me sitting with Deb. Um, so yeah, so I didn't get that trip down memory lane since I only had one con to do receipts with, but uh, certainly going through the pictures really sort of reminded me in a way that I had forgotten. One of the things I got to say too, and this is kind of stupid, but also I think very relatable, is that I love hotels. I like staying. We always stay in a Marriott when we go to these things. And like I like a nice hotel and the marble counter in the bathroom and the big pillows and the little bottles of shampoo, which probably won't even be there anymore because they're not environmental. And I've just about like I always bring some back, so I've just about used up my stash.
Oh
Oh my
wow.
I'm
gosh.
ready to go back to hotels. So I miss that, and I just miss like talking to people, running into someone, saying, "Let's grab a coffee." So much of my social life actually revolves around cons. The rest is like I see people on Twitter, except for maybe 20 days a year when I see them in real life. So yeah, I miss it.
Yeah. I mean, I miss it, especially since I do think C2E2, for me, it had everything. I mean, it was a full-fledged con. It had a big DC. You remember there was all that drama about DC a year ago because Dan DiDio had just been fired, right? And
That seems like forever ago.
right. And then it was in DC time too. And then there was a big Jim Lee panel. That was the first time he had spoken publicly since he had been made publisher. So there was a big story for me to cover. And so there was that drama. I had my staff there. I had a lot of my writers were there and they were busy. We were busy coordinating coverage of all the newsworthy stuff that was happening. And I felt like it was C2E2. I felt like it finally hit its stride, and one of the things that I regret about it, well, we had our wonderful meals, we had a fantastic dinner on Saturday night, that right, remember we had a big long dinner that was like the six of us, and then
it was the hotel restaurant, but the hotel restaurant was good.
And so, but I remember that, there was the big wrestling event that was happening, but I wasn't into AEW. But apparently then immediately after, lockdown began, got back into wrestling so big time. So now I'm just kicking myself because not only was this pay-per-view epic, like it was an epic pay-per-view, but they say it was the greatest tag team match of all times was at that pay-per-view. So we were just feet away from literally what everybody says is, if not the greatest, one of the 5 greatest tag team matches of all time. So anyway, and
I remember like at the very end of the show, like walking off the con floor, and I must have been in a hurry to go somewhere because out of the corner of my eye, I saw Sergeant Slaughter, and I was like, Sergeant Slaughter! I was like, I can't,
right.
I was a big wrestling fan back in the 80s, back in the days of like the Iron Sheik and George the Animal Steel, and like Sergeant Slaughter was big. So I was like, oh my, so I regret not stopping for that.
Yeah.
I have to say, like, I've always loved C2E2 because I'm from the Midwest. I'm originally from South Bend, Indiana, went to the same high school as Pete Buttigieg.
Oh, no kidding.
Not the same year. And my dad's from Chicago, so I have family there. So C2E2 always feels like a hometown con. And the first year that they had it, it was huge. Everybody was there. And then the second year, nobody, I thought it was great the first year, but apparently it was something of a bust in terms of people making money because then it was much smaller after that for many years. And every year I'd go, should I go? One year I actually scheduled surgery around going to C2E2. I told the doctor it's just going to have to wait. So I've only actually missed 1 year. But it's been a great thing to watch it build back up again and become someplace worth going. Now Johanna's begging to differ here. So
because I remember that I went the first year and it was amazing because there were like every comics publisher was there.
Yes,
and they're all saying that because they made a big deal of it being really in Chicago, not in Rosemont, which doesn't really count in Chicago, and there's only one restaurant option and whatever, which is what Wizard World Chicago always used to do. But they made a big deal out of it. But then everybody was talking about the costs were not worth what they were making.
Right.
So yes, it's come back up as a con, but it's not the same con because it's no longer publisher focused.
Yeah.
It is a media con, like your big shows, which I think maybe you have to do economically. But you've got the wrestling, you've got the video games, you've got some attempt at some movie stuff.
Well, there was a huge video game like pavilion, and there was a big manga. Wasn't there like a big manga pavilion as well? I might be mixing that up. I mean,
Crunchyroll is usually there. Viz always does a panel. Like in the beginning, there was no manga, and now they actually do come.
I just feel like they had, like Gendy Tartakovsky was there and did a big panel. I mean, they had Cards Against Humanity, which, since then is
that was before. That was the before times
in the crapper. But I just remember thinking there was so much to do and so many people that had finally come back to this con, and like I get just often think if that was the last one for a long time, I'm glad We got the whole experience.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, we did at the time kind of know that there was a pretty good chance this was going to be the last con. I mean,
Well, that was the
Were you at that time
title
worried
of my
about
con
getting
report,
sick?
Yes.
but I thought I was joking.
Yeah.
It was so I took the train out, and at the time I was still working for the mayor's office, so this was something I was paying attention to. So the whole way out, I was reading Twitter, and I was reading all these articles by people like Zainab Tufekci, who have like now become a part of my life practically, you know, trying to sort of like suss out like what is the deal with this thing. And I remember people saying on Twitter, you know, please don't be offended. I'm not going to hug you. I'm not going to shake hands. I hugged and shook hands with everybody. Like
Wow.
nobody was actually living by that. They did put out hand sanitizer stations. As we all know, that's like the least effective thing you can do. But there wasn't anything else to do. I mean, honestly, on the one hand, going to an arena with 90,000 people seems like a bad idea on the eve of a pandemic. But on the other hand, it's McCormick Place has high ceilings and good ventilation. So there you go. Maybe we were just fools who got lucky. But it was already upon us and we didn't realize it.
But there was so much talk about Emerald City because at that time COVID was in Seattle, and you know, I had a heart-to-heart talk with one of the Reed Pop people, and we had a long conversation, and I won't name who it was, but you know, we said, you know, he told me, yeah, we're meeting on Tuesday to decide what we're going to do, because Emerald City was going to be in like 2 weeks. I think it was just like,
right. It was like a week or two later, and everybody was rolling their eyes because there was another con in there too. So it was a lot of travel, and it was, God, be careful what you wish for, you know, because the monkey really turned up with that one.
Yeah.
There was a game of con chicken though, because it's a matter of, I don't feel safe going, but the economics get really complicated. You know, I can't afford to lose my table fee.
Right.
So I need them to cancel it instead of me deciding not to go. And so it becomes a who's going to blink first kind of, I mean, I remember that atmosphere around those early days, you know.
I think it was tough for the people that run the cons like Repop because, you know, there's also an issue of like, how much are you going to lose if you cancel this con? And are you going to be able to get insurance? And, you know, what do your contracts say? Nobody saw this coming a year ago, you know, like nothing like this has happened since 1918, and they didn't have Comic Cons in 1918. So, you know, I really
barely had comics.
Right? Yes, we're going to have a Polly and her pals conference.
Thomas Nast will be there.
Embarcadero.
Signing a real donkey. I mean, it just, you know, nobody could have foreseen this. And unfortunately, you know, and I got to hand it to the con people. I think they've stepped up. They've been really good sports about the whole thing. They must be taking a beating financially. You know, and so I'm looking forward to going back to cons, just like, you know, we get takeout from our local restaurants to support them. I'll be going to the cons to support them.
Well, this week, it was announced that there will be no San Diego Comic-Con. It will be Comic-Con at home once again, only 3 days. Which I think is a good idea, actually.
Yeah.
I think definitely. Virtual events that go more than 3 days are a little tiresome, but they said we're going to try to have a live event in November in San Diego.
This is what I'm kind of worried about, because I've seen a lot of things, not just in comics, but other fandoms as well, pushing to the third, fourth quarter under the assumption that by fall people will be vaccinated. That might be a little soon for gatherings. But I kind of also worry that
I got
skip a year, but can they survive skipping more than 1 year?
Well, I'm sorry, Deb, what were you saying? You broke up a bit.
No, I'm saying like, I mean, there's a conference, professional conference that I'm supposed to be teaching a workshop at, and they're scheduling for end of September.
Really?
Yeah. And what's going to happen is you're going to have a collision of dates, because if everybody assumes that, oh, by October things will be fine based on no evidence whatsoever, but okay, you know, let's try and do something this year, you're going to wind up with everybody trying to do things in November, December, and I don't know that it's going to work.
Right. I think
November, December is a horrible time to travel, no matter how you slice it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's the holidays, and then if you're going to any place like New York or Chicago or whatever, you're going to get snow delays, perhaps.
Unless you take the train. But yeah, I hear you. It's going to be tough. I mean, my husband got vaccinated today. I haven't gotten vaccinated yet, but if indeed everybody's going to be vaccinated by May, I think that, you know, it could be maybe.
Johanna's day job.
Well, I'm not even scheduled to be vaccinated until summer at the earliest in my state. The supplies just aren't there. The situation, you know, the setup just isn't there. And then you have the people that refuse to. What's going on in Texas is a real shame with them just deciding we're just going to ignore all the scientific evidence. And that's Texas. So I say that as somebody who lived there.
Canada are having a hard time too.
Who's having a hard time?
Our friends in Canada are having a hard time.
Or getting enough vaccine or getting enough people vaccinated?
Getting a vaccine, like apparently there's
because we swallowed it all up.
Where, they're not producing any in Canada, so they have to import it all in.
And well, I heard something on the news today where the new vaccine, the one-shot Johnson & Johnson, some Catholics have come out against it because it was made with research on fetal tissue.
Yes, but the Pope says it's okay.
Pope said okay.
That. But this is one more thing that we don't need complicating the whole process.
Exactly.
You know, I can't help but wonder if maybe the people who don't believe that COVID is a risk and that, you know, don't wear masks and don't want to get vaccines, that they might reach their own herd immunity, you know, because it seems to be a lot of the people that I know like that have had COVID.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Presumably not terribly seriously.
I mean, if you don't take the precautions, you're going to get.
If you don't,
people, right? I mean, the fatality rate is not that high for younger people. It's a gamble. The gamble is, if you get it, you'll probably be okay. But if it's bad, it'll be really, really bad. You know,
and you might
but I really like my sense of smell.
The problem with that idea is also, it's not just if you want to be an idiot, fine, be an idiot. But you're risking the lives of the people that have to treat you because that's their ethical duty. You're risking costs for that to happen. You're taking space away from people who weren't idiots, for who might need other things like, I don't know, heart attacks. You know, you are not an individual in the system is the problem.
Right. And so personal responsibility is really meaningless in a situation like this.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to America. And Canada. But yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what they sell at the cons now after
I know. And I mean,
masks.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm said I'm going to wear a mask when I go to cons now. You know,
here's a question: I have not had a cold or the flu in a year.
I've had tummy trouble. I've gotten like mild food, just upset stomach twice, and where I was just lay in bed, and both times it was foodborne. You know, both times I freaked out because it can be, you know, stomach issues can be a sign of COVID, but I never had a fever or anything. And that's it. That's the only time I've been sick all year. It's like probably my own cooking made me sick. So the danger all year, you know, perpetual danger.
But here's a question for cons when we come back. Even you know, once we come back, are guests going to want to come? Are guests going to be willing to interact with attendees the way they used to, photo ops and the like? And if they aren't, then what does that do again to the economics of the convention? Are people going to be willing to go and pay $75 a day for the chance to meet person X if person X is going to stay 6 feet across the room from them?
You know, I mean, they've been having, you know, to their credit, Wizard has been chugging along as best they can with virtual meet and greets. I mean, those have become a thing that people do. I mean, you know, the story of the last year is in a lot of ways been, you know, oh no, after another, you know, at first it was like, oh no, there's no Emerald City. Oh no, there's no WonderCon. Oh no, TCAF, you know, and then after the first few months, it was just like, yeah, they're not going to do anything. That's, you know, then it was just like, oh, did you hear? There's no blah, blah. I
thought it was going to be,
you know, yeah. So, you know, it's going, they're not going to be the same. I mean, that's why I really think of it as the last con, because it was the last big con of that culture. And, you know, I've told this story before so many times, but you know, how I woke up in the bed at 6 a.m. and was like, you know what, I better get my photo with Carl Urban today because I'm not going to have a chance for a long
I remember
time,
that.
right? And I that was my instincts telling me.
I'm sorry, who's Carl Urban?
Who is Carl Urban? He's in The Boys. He's more, you know, that guy. You know, that guy.
That man in Star Trek, right?
Yes, he was Bones. He's been in every. He was Eomer. He was
Judge Dredd in the Judge Dredd movie.
Yeah, he's just everything. He's everywhere. He's everything, and you know.
I'm sorry.
He's what?
I'm sorry for not knowing.
Oh no, it's okay. It's okay.
But
Yeah.
you weren't in the room with her when she spent an hour going, do I want to do this? Can I do this? I want to
At
do this.
6 in the
I
morning.
remember that. Yeah.
But at least I wasn't snoring while I was thinking
Oh,
about
you were
it.
talking, Heidi. But that's okay.
That kind of fan behavior is great. That's what I love about conventions, though. The whole, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, there's still that person who's going to make you turn into this gibbering kind of, oh my God.
You've got to show this how the picture turn out.
It's great. It's up. It just came up on my 1 year.
Oh yeah, here's your memories.
Yeah, here's your
Yeah.
memories of. Yeah, I'll see if I can find it while somebody else is talking, or I'll edit. I'll edit it in.
I'm a little bit
Oh,
more
there you
cynical as I was going through those 7 years of pictures, and a lot of them were pictures that I took in my capacity as the assistant to the mayor of my little city, realizing how many of those people are gone now.
What?
That because we dealt with a lot of senior citizens, but yeah, we've lost a lot of people, and not as much in comics, very much on the city side of my life. And so that made me kind of think, yeah, you know what, you got to hang out while you can.
You do. Yeah.
So I'm going to grab all the gusto I can get, as they used to say in the beer commercials. Because why wouldn't you?
That was one thing I enjoyed about C2E2 is I saw a couple of old friends there that I hate to sit down. And
oh my God, it was Old Home Week in the middle of the
But,
con floor. I was there. I can testify.
Wait, what happened?
Feuds were brought out and dusted off. Yes, Johanna.
Not what I was talking about, but okay.
Wait, what? You guys are talking about two separate things?
I guess. No,
I was talking about the fact that I got to see a couple people that I hadn't seen in years that I'd known for a long while. I don't know where feuds came into it.
I don't know if there were feuds, but there were conversations. It was all, but it was like so much fun to watch you, because this predates my entry into the comics world, to watch you and your friends talking over old times. It was good times.
Seems like old times. I remember, just so many of my friends came in and flew in and just decided last minute to come, and the BarCon was hopping with just everybody. Remember we were there late talking to the girl from the DC Nation and had a great conversation with her, but I remember on Sunday I was thinking, like, because the weird thing about the McCormick place is just so distinctive, and it has those kind of like elevated hot dog stands, like you go up the stairs and you get your hot dog and you sit and you're surrounded by the con. And I did that. I was, because I never eat enough when I'm not with you ladies. So I got a hot dog and I sat there and I looked down, and, it was packed. It was like the photo behind me. That's a panel. But everywhere was just hundreds and hundreds of people seething.
We're all having a good time.
Yeah, the mood was fantastic. And I did think, I looked down and I was like, I did have this, take note moment, because I just had a feeling.
Wow.
It's rare that you know when the world is changing.
Well, I didn't know it was going to change. I thought it was going to change until June. I'll be honest. I thought, okay, 3 months off, summer zaps this virus, everything's going to be fine. I didn't think we'd be a year later, but all right. Yeah.
How do you think cons will change after this? How do you think cons will change? Will they come back the same as they were before, just maybe and more so? Or will things
it's going to be it's going to have to rebuild. Eventually, I think it'll take years for them to get back to the state that they were in.
So, but what about this? So, like, there's different ways to look at cons, right? But I never see anything but the comics. And this has been actually a good year for comics publishers. Mm-hmm. It's been a fabulous year for manga. It's been incredible. And one of the things that has happened is that all this backlist stuff has come out. So people are like rediscovering, Death Note, and Haikyuu. And my favorite, Toilet Bound Hanako-kun, is like one of the top properties of the year. That's not that old. It came started out in January 2020.
Supported by a pretty good anime, so
that must be it. Yeah. But you look at what people are reading, and they're going and they're like finding these older series and reading them. And for the manga publishers, that's practically free money. Those books have already paid for themselves. People are snapping up box sets. Apparently, all the people who were sitting around watching anime, when they ran out of anime to watch, started picking up the manga. So comic sales and manga sales have been good in a year when publishers did not have to pay the expenses of going to cons.
So
I'm
that
wondering
makes
if there's going to be promotional money floating around.
well, no, but see that to me says the opposite. That tells these people they don't need cons. They don't need to make the expenses to get the sales. That they can reach people directly. They can do online events. That getting back to what Wizard World did, would I rather pay $300 to go to a con for a weekend to try and get in line to get a signature, or would I rather pay that money to get 2 minutes dedicated screen time with the person I'm interested in meeting?
I want to smell them. I want to smell them.
All right. Heidi's interests aside, the question is, we found these alternate ways of doing things. Do we need to spend all the money to truck things halfway across the country to meet people? Or are there more effective, cost-effective ways to do
I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to say two things about that. And one is that actually watching a virtual panel is not as much fun. For one thing, they're pre-taped, so you don't have the spontaneity with them. But the other thing is, I think you're talking about two different audiences, that the people who are picking up Haikyuu are not necessarily the people that are going to cons. And I'm going to take Viz as the example for this because I think they do it very well. But actually, everybody does. When you go to the Viz booth, it is hopping. It is filled with fans. They're giving stuff away. You're taking pictures with a statue of Naruto. Like, there's a lot of fan engagement, which is a really important part. So I think you're looking at two things. And the comics industry forgets this to their peril. There's a narrow, deep audience, and there's a wide, shallow audience. Cons are more, I want to say cons are more for the narrow, deep audience. I think something like C2E2 too offers the possibility. I mean, most of these cons now, there's like the block, right? Which is where you get the merch, where you buy like corsets and swords and gamer tables and all these things. And there's the big boxes of the secondhand comics. And there's a tattoo pavilion. And I don't know, sometimes at C2E2, they have a live animal pavilion. I mean, C2E2, you pay for a ticket for a day and you've got a day's worth of entertainment, especially if you've got kids.
Well, this gets back to the type of conventions we're talking about, right? Because there's the Disneyland type of convention, which is what you're talking about. You pay your money, you walk around and look at people in costume, and you buy expensive souvenirs, right? Mm-hmm. That's your
pretty much all the ReedPop conventions, the big ones, yeah.
Right, yeah, right. But then there's also your shows that are more guest driven or artist driven or your art show types. And then there's the sort of local white boxes in a hotel ballroom, but we aren't really talking about those because some of those have been going on anyway. So it depends on what kind of show you are talking about and what kind of experience you want to have.
And also all the shows could be completely taken over by these non-fungible tokens, and I'm not even kidding. Deb, do you understand this? You're our gadget. Come on, Johanna, Deb, do you understand the non-fungible tokens and all that everybody?
No, I don't. What is non-fungible?
What are you talking about?
The digital art, the digital art that's going for millions of dollars.
Oh, that stuff.
Is this like the online trading card things that I've been seeing people trying for like the last 15 years, where you try to make digital collectibles, which is ridiculous?
Well, they're trying and they're succeeding right now because there's some people who invested in this, for $500 in January, and then they just sold it for $1 million. So it's a bit of a gold rush. If you can
display it on a computer screen, you can copy it.
One would think.
No, not that's I'm sure.
No, that's
actually you can, because you can always do a screen grab.
Yeah, that's the thing of the digital revolution. That we digitized everything.
Well, this panel, we actually have some people watching us right now, so I'll just say we understand this. Okay, yeah. We apologize. Like, I did read a big article about it, and I do understand it is going to destroy the rainforest. So I know it's in horrible danger. I mean, I just can't believe that this is nothing more than a fad that's at the end of a pandemic where a lot of rich people have not enough to spend their money on. Because, and what made me think of this is you guys talking about how comics survived. I was just talking to a publisher for an article, and every publisher has said they had a better 2020 than 2019. And, they've come out in public. Boom was up something like 23%.
Really?
Yeah, these are good numbers. And it's because everyone upped their online sales.
Manga
People
sales are
needed-
up like 70%. It's
People
phenomenal.
needed things to do. Reading was something you could have delivered to your house. You could do. You didn't need to leave the house. It was still entertaining and escapist. And when you talk about increased demand and lowered cost, then yeah, that makes perfect sense.
But it's like right about this time, like this is when usually when Calvin asked me to start gathering information for my yearly manga state of the business article.
Mhm.
And it was this time when like people initially their initial reaction was let's cut our publishing schedule. Let's cut back. This is going to be horrible for us. And then and the only publisher that didn't, I think, was Viz. Viz just,
That's right. Viz did
just
not.
kept ahead with their regular schedule.
Mhm.
But then and as it turned out, as we've all mentioned, that sales were actually very, very good. They've actually gone up. And so I think I remember the reaction like about a month or so after I wrote my article, because the article was like people were being cautious. And then about a month later, people were saying like, well, that totally was not what we expected.
So
No, we're not complaining, but we don't know what's going on, right? And we don't know how to adapt to this. I mean, we're going to try, but the thing with the manga publishers, right, is that they're dealing with their colleagues who are in Japan, right? And Japan had a hard time transitioning to work from home.
Mhm.
Let's
Oh,
put it that
really?
way. Yeah.
did they? But Deb, I did see that Shonen Jump like apparently has really shifted to digital.
Yes.
In Japan.
Yeah, big way. I mean, between the Shonen Jump app, like on Viz,
Right.
and then Manga Plus, which
Manga
is
Plus, which I've just
more-
discovered. Yeah, we can read all the Shonen Jump manga for free. So it's Manga Week at ICV2.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which
Oh,
is
that's right. I saw the interview with Stu Levy.
yeah. So Milton's been doing the interviews, and I've been doing the write-ups of the manga licenses, which there are tons of manga licenses. I mean, I could say so many things about manga. It's actually fascinating the way that. But so like twice a year, Milton, the editor at ICV2, interviews Kevin Hamrick, who's like a VP at Viz, and it's been really interesting to see what Kevin says, because he's like, yeah, we're reprinting stuff we never reprinted before. Death Note is doing phenomenally well. So the sales are way up. And the other interesting thing that I'm seeing, and Deb, you may have seen it already because you read more widely than I do, because you read a lot of digital stuff, but I'm seeing way more diversity in manga. I'm seeing a lot more boys love that's not really yaoi as we think of it. I just was a little be up on ICV2. I just was running down Yen Press's announcements, and they've got like spy stuff, and there's like isekai with female protagonists. Just a lot more variety in the types of stories that are coming over, and also in the types of light novels that are coming over. They all still have names that are a paragraph long, but they're not all this. They're really interesting stories. So
I wanted to ask you guys about Blue State, which is a manga series that got nominated for the LA Book
Blue
Prize.
Flag.
Blue
Blue
Flag.
Flag. Yeah, I just looked at it and couldn't remember. Yeah, well, what is the deal? Like, because I'd never heard of it. So, I mean, I haven't heard of a lot of things.
Go ahead, Brit. I mean, you can go ahead.
I haven't read it. I haven't read it. Have you
read it? It's very good.
I know. I haven't. I haven't had time to read it because I have to keep churning out these articles for Milton. What's it about?
It's about a love quadrangle. There's two boys who are childhood friends. One's very athletic and popular. One's kind of more shy and a little goofy, but likable, right? Then there's a very cute petite girl who's very shy, and then there's a girl who's a little bit more mature and self-assured. And the thing that slowly becomes revealed over time is that the tall, popular, athletic boy actually has a crush on the other boy. And then the tall, mature girl has a crush on the girl. But then at the beginning of the series, there's like, the cute, shy one and the kind of awkward boy kind of like, start getting romantically interested in each other. And then that the two other people who are basically their friends are trying to wrestle with, do I support my friend or do I reveal to them that I secretly am in love with them?
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it does. I think we're getting to the volumes where secrets are starting to be revealed, and given that this was published in Shonen Jump, that this touches upon gay and lesbian issues in a very sensitive and uh, compelling way, I think it was very different. I
Oh.
was surprised that it got nominated because, I think there are other books that kind of are worthy of attention. And like, for example, I think Blue Period is amazing.
I was just going to say Blue Period.
And or even Blue Giant, which is about jazz. But I think
And those are just manga with blue in the title.
Oh, and there's more. There's another one. There's a blue. I forget the name of it, but it's about soccer and it's coming out next week. I don't know what it is about blue. Anyway, so
there's Blue Smoke. Isn't there one called Blue Smoke too?
It's just kind of true. But it did, that LA Times nomination that threw me off too. But like this reminds me of like when My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness apparently became the darling of the award season, right?
Right.
And Seven Seas has just licensed something else that's going to be. It's called like My Life with an Alcoholic or something, and it's basically drawn in the same style. It's the same kind of comic. It's like a diary comic that went viral on Pixiv. And is now that's going to be this year's My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness, and I think may tap a chord. It's funny because one of the things, so Seven Seas license, they did a license announcement every day, and in February, and so there's like all these weird isekai mashups. Like there's one with karate, and there's one where like a guy, it's like isekai meets sci-fi, where this guy is like piloting a spaceship with a crew of beautiful women. And then there's one of their ghost ship books about a guy with an armpit fetish. Like it's just all over the map. But like there was a time when if you had an armpit fetish, you probably didn't know anybody else who was like that. And now like, the internet has brought, I'm sure there's a message board for that, and that people will be talking about this, and that there's a market, Seven Seas, I think, is very good at diving into those niche markets.
Well, I mean, I will say that for, whenever you go to Japan, and one day we will, one day we all will, you go to the store and you see like just, aisles and aisles of manga. And you realize that what we get in America in English officially is the teeny, teeny, tiniest tip of the iceberg of what's published in Japan. So
what astonishes me is that it's good quality stuff too. Like what's coming over here now, despite the fact that there's so much of it, because I think in the beginning people thought, well, like, they'll license anything. The quality wasn't necessarily good, and now everything we're getting is good.
Well, I think the stuff that wasn't that good was I got the impression that was hostage negotiations.
Right. Yeah. You have to publish this, and then we'll let you publish
like
that.
We'll give, if you want, you want the super hot one, you gotta take these 3 kind of so-so ones. Kind of like that. Or sometimes they would do the game they would play is like, oh, so you want our super hot stuff? Well, you got to prove to us that you can actually sell books. So here's this thing. You go sell that and we'll get back to you.
Yeah. You can sell this, you can sell anything.
Technically, I think that technically became illegal in the US as a result of the Comics Code wars in the 50s. Periodical tying of that type.
Well,
yeah, but it's still, you could say it over dinner. It's just a strongly hint.
Yeah. I mean, we've all heard about these crazy stories about what people had to do to get a license from a Japanese.
Yeah, I mean, this is the stuff that we would hear about at cons, right? We would go have.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you're never going to hear on Twitter or in a virtual con. You got to be like sitting down, sitting down at BarCon with someone. That's why we go to BarCon, right? To get the good stories.
Oh my God. But that's what I miss. That's what I miss the most about
as
a reporter. Well, as a reporter, you have your sources, and it's just so much harder to, text. I mean, I guess texting is great, but yeah, it's a lot harder than just running in. And, for me, like the greatest thing was just running into somebody, and they'll be like, oh, did you hear about blah, blah, blah? And they're like, what? You just learn all these stories. And also, I mean, I think we might have even mentioned this. Like we did one of these back end for San Diego. but for San Diego Con at home. But I just miss having a PR person come up to me, a publicist, come up to me with the book and tell me how excited they are about it, right?
Yes. Yes.
I had a similar issue last week actually, because I made an acquaintance of somebody on Twitter that I'm doing an interview with. They wrote for Doctor Who, and I had the worst time trying to phrase the questions, because if I'd even just said hello to this person at a convention, I could show that I was, happy to meet them and ready to talk with them. And when you just have text, when you just have an email, it's very, very difficult to convey. I am not asking this to try and set you up for a trap. I am just asking this to try
not being obnoxious. Yeah, I agree. So much nuance gets lost. Whereas if it's someone that I've met that knows me, they kind of, I agree.
You know what? I'm working on a story for PW right now, and same thing. It's like I'm asking some questions. I'm like, you're right. I'm like, look, I know this is this is confidential information. I'm just, just asking. I hope people figure it out. But yeah, it's just really hard to.
I have to say, as someone who's done a lot of this, that writing the questions for an email interview is a completely different skill set.
Oh, it's horrible. I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate those.
I mean, if you can do it, the interview can be good. It depends on the person you're interviewing too. I mean, I've had people who gave me one sentence answers. There's not much you can do with that.
What do you hate? Oh, go on, Johanna.
I was really glad I was interviewing a writer and not, an actor. Presumably they understand words.
Now, so Deb, you have betrayed us and started another podcast, I hear. You want to tell us about that?
Well, sure. This is an idea of Chris Butcher, and his friend Chip Zdarsky and David Brothers. We all traveled together to Japan last November in the before times. And I think we discovered that Chip has not read a lot of manga. And so Chris came up with this idea that Chris, David and I would take turns recommending different manga that we thought that we would think that Chip might like. So instead of mansplaining, it's manga-splaining.
That's awesome.
So we're on episode 3 now, but we've recorded ahead about several. So right now, I think the next week's manga we're going to be talking about is Helter Skelter by Kyoko Okazaki. We're trying to get a mix of stuff. Go to mangasplaining.com and you can check it out. Chris writes incredibly detailed show notes. So even as a podcast, whenever we refer to something, a manga panel or something, he will put the picture. And so you'll know exactly what we're talking about.
Oh, nice.
It's a nice touch.
So Johanna, what is going on in the world of Sherlock, or fandom? Give us the fandom report there, Johanna.
Oh, I don't know the fandom report. I will say that it's interesting that today is March 4th because that is the day in canon in Study in Scarlet when Watson found out that Holmes was a consulting detective.
Oh,
he says it was March 4th when I read this article and said, "This guy doesn't know what he's talking about." I'm paraphrasing. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And Holmes goes, "Well, I wrote that article. It talks about how you can identify people, and that's what I do." And yeah, it's all in the first novel. Anyway, I don't know fandom. I have been collecting things. That's the fun of international internet shopping. So, but I am very excited to be writing an article for Sherlock Holmes magazine.
Yeah.
Yay.
The Brits have the best magazines. I don't know why. I think it's because they have a small country and still have lots of newsstands. But this is a nice glossy publication that comes out of England. And I pitched an article on Sherlock and manga because Moriarty the Patriot is hot right now. And there's this, the adaptation of the TV show that Titan puts out. And they just put out the Scandal in Bohemia, which is one of the favorite episodes. And then I have a fondness for Young Miss Holmes, which even before Enola Holmes was a manga that had this young girl running around being a better detective than Sherlock, which is always kind of the temptation when you write these stories. And those are the ones I know about in English. I'm leaving out the one where Sherlock is a dog.
Sherlock Bones. I was going to say Sherlock Bones, man.
Yeah.
It's Sherlock Holmes in public domain now?
Yes, well, except for the last 10 or so stories, which is why you had the Enola Holmes lawsuit. But I think I've gone into that before and won't bother with that now. But basically, the estate tried to say that an emotional Sherlock only happened in the last 10 stories. And if anybody has an emotional Sherlock, then we still own the copyright to that, because that's what estates do, right? They're like, no, we still want the money. Which, of course, all the fans went, this is ludicrous. So, but yeah, Sherlock Holmes is public domain, so you will see more and more books about him coming out. I am still working on, sometime in my copious free time, a piece on the difference between pastiche and fanfic, which boils down to pastiches tend to be in print, and pastiches tend to be the word that people use when they want to look down on fanfic, because those women who like sex write them. So there's
Wait, so pastiche doesn't have sex in it?
Sorry?
Pastiche doesn't have sex in it?
Most of the pastiches do not, because Sherlock was, ascetic, and they were only good friends. And there are a few that cross the line as you get more women writing and starting their own publishing houses, actually, to do some Sherlock Holmes related stories. But there's a lot of connotations that go along with this that I find fascinating, in terms of, particularly when it comes to comics, because I had gotten this attitude about fanfic that it was terrible and it was something you looked down on, and it was people who couldn't really write. And I think in comics that happens because the boundary between fan and pro is so thin and permeable and moving that people like to draw much stronger boundaries to try and say, but what I'm doing is officially licensed and it's okay. And even though I didn't create this character and somebody else created this character and I'm working on him now and I'm doing something with him that maybe the original creator wouldn't have even wanted, it's still not fanfic because the publisher says it's okay. So there's all these attitudes and ideas that get wrapped up in it, especially, as I said, once you start bringing in the gender differences, the generational differences. I belong to an actual Sherlock Holmes book group that has existed since 1969 here in Madison in various forms. And you get a lot of older men. And we had a fascinating discussion at our last meeting over Zoom about how close was Holmes and Watson's relationship, and the way some people were very resistant to that was very interesting. Yeah, well, we read the Three Garridebs, which is the one where basically the bad guy shoots Watson. Holmes basically tries to beat him to death and then says, if Watson had died, you would not have left this room alive. So it's the big, I really care a lot about him, and where you tend to draw that line.
You have been and always will be my friend.
Well, that's the Star Trek. Well, Spock is descended from Holmes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Nicholas Meyer writes pastiches of Sherlock and Watson and directed Search for Spock, the second one. So there's this whole connection. Anyway,
right.
Is that enough fandom report for you now?
Wow, that is a good. Don't you think probably maybe Sherlock Holmes was ace and just didn't come out or didn't realize
there are some fascinating fics that explore Watson coming to terms with, I'm certainly not gay, but boy, my roommate is pretty. I think it's wonderful that a lot of people find something to resonate with in the Sherlock Holmes character or the friendship between the two. And a lot of them start introducing aspects of themselves. If they are asexual, they may want to see Holmes as asexual. If they're neuroatypical, they may want to see Holmes as neuroatypical. And there's room for all that, and that's wonderful. And I think that's a great thing, and that's what I was trying to explain to the club. Some of whom were like, "That's great," and some of whom were like, "Yeah, let's stop talking about this now."
Please don't make me think about Sherlock Holmes having sex. They're saying, yeah.
Well, thank God we have more fandoms and more inclusive fandoms, I guess.
I want to give a shout out to something. It's another podcast, Deb, but it's no competition to yours. Planet Money, which is an NPR thing, has been doing a podcast where they resurrected a public domain superhero. Ooh. So first of all, and it is so funny. I'm listening to this on my daily walk and laughing out loud. I'm sure my neighbors have they've finally gone around the bend. But they first tried to buy a superhero from Marvel, and they found a superhero called Doorman, whose one ability was that he could turn himself into a door and therefore let you into any building, but he could not himself walk through the door. So anyway, they tried to buy it from Marvel. Marvel was like, no dice. Then they called up one of my favorite people in the entire industry, Alex Segura at Archie, and tried to get him to sell them an Archie character. And he's like, nope. So then they went to the public domain and they extricated a superhero Microface who's basically a podcaster, but from the 40s. And so now Alex is helping them to write the book. So it's very funny, and it also gives you a good idea. I mean, there's some good lessons in there about intellectual property, and Planet Money, they always kind of like deliver the lesson, with a big spoonful of sugar. So anyway, it's just the latest Planet Money. I think they're on episode 3, and it's definitely worth a listen.
It sounds fun.
Yeah, it is.
Brigid, what else are you up to? What are your quarantine or lockdown COVID hobbies?
Oh my God, all I do is read books, really. Johanna, no, it was somebody else who suggested an actual prose mystery called The Thursday Afternoon Murder Club, which is about a bunch of old people who solve a mystery, and that's very good because I like mystery novels. But I've been reading a lot of manga, a lot of kids. I've read most of Nate Powell's new book, which is a set of essays about living through the Trump years, and it's great. It's Nate, I think, is a really talented cartoonist. It's also a little tough to read under the circumstances. And I'm about to dive into Tono Monogatari, which is the latest collection of Shigeru Mizuki's work, which Drawn and Quarterly has published. So, and it's translated and annotated by Zach Davison, who is an absolute treasure and knows everything there is to know about yokai. So that's kind of a fun thing. But yeah, but every time they send me a big Nate book, it's like, that's my afternoon. I like comedy. Oh, and Heaven's Design Team, I'm reading volume 5 right now, which is just like crazy manga about like if God outsourced designing all the animals to a design team. And so they all stand around and have arguments, and they come up with these really preposterous animals who turn out to be real, like vegetarian piranhas, which they then tell you about at the end of the chapter.
Nice. I have so many books that I just need to read. I have an advanced PDF of Monsters by Barry Windsor Smith, which I definitely want to read. That book's only been like 30 years in the making, 40 years in the making, something like that. So definitely want to read that. I just have piles of books here. Like, I don't know. I spend all my time Zooming and podcasting, and I barely have time to read.
Time writing,
playing Pokemon Go with Deb. I mean, Deb and I, like, Deb is really the connector here, because Deb and I are in a Pokemon Go club where we do go on, raids around the, worldwide raids. We get our friends from around the world so we can catch a Kangaskhan. I don't know how to say it. We got to get the Heracross. How are we going to get the Heracross, Deb?
I don't know.
Okay, so if
we have to go to Texas or Florida, and oh God.
Is anyone watching this or listening to this is in a place where they have Heracrosses? Hit us up. We will trade. I'll give you a Bouffalon.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, but
so
yeah.
I don't know how many times I've flown through like the Charlotte airport hoping to catch a Carnivine.
Oh, are they all? Is that where they're only in the South, the Carnivine?
They're only in North Carolina.
What?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna work on that. We gotta get somebody. I have lots of friends in the Carolina. My cousin lives there. Why doesn't my cousin play? Okay, I have some teenage cousins. We're getting that Carnivine. We're getting Carnivines. It's yeah. We're this club.
The airport's about a mile long. You could probably just just walk through the airport and get it.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, so when I went to India, I thought, okay, I'm gonna get that turtle one that's only in India, right? And here's what I found out: is like I had 2 opportunities to get it. I only got it once because it only comes out in the sun when it's sunny out. And it was smoggy the entire time I was in India. So damn you, Delhi.
International travel has taken on a whole nother meaning now, hasn't it?
So I gave mine to Chris Butcher because he was so jonesing for one, and I figured I would go back to India again someday.
Now you have to.
Well, we need to
travel a lot. So
yeah, we are. I actually, I just to finish up Pokemon Go, because that is really my, my 2 things that I gotten really into in in quarantine lockdown is Pokemon Go and wrestling. So that's my life. That's who I am. And now baseball is back this week. So those are my pastimes. But yeah, Dad, we did the Pokemon Go Kanto tour, which is this big event. And I actually wrote a big essay for the site about it,
Oh, wow.
about how it was so great. It was like the most fun I've had since C2E2. Um, and just meeting up. I met up with another beat writer, but the like everywhere we went, people were playing Pokemon Go. So it was like that sense of community, the sense of being in a crowd, where the whole is building. I mean, that's what I miss so much about conventions. I miss that the sense of community, the community. That's
Can I
it's.
tell you, like, this is so David Brooks. David Brooks is getting himself into a little trouble because he didn't reveal that he was like, so he's
Big
basically
Times
he's
Writer?
a columnist for the New York Times, which is already like a ridiculous job. And then he has this side gig for the Aspen Institute. And he's getting paid by Facebook, and it's a huge conflict of interest, which he has never revealed. But when I saw what he was doing, I was like, damn it, because his thing is he feels like we don't have a community anymore. And so he wants to create weavers who weave a community. And I'm like, dude, I do that all the time and nobody gives me $250,000 a year for it. That's what I did when I worked in the mayor's office. That's what I do on the internet. That's what, I mean, Deb is the queen of manga Twitter, like that's what comics does.
Mhm.
Is it, we
Aw,
don't need David
Timmy.
and a Facebook group. We've got Timmy.
Yeah, we got Timmy. Oh, he's so pretty. Look at that boy.
Yeah.
Oh, with his little ear. But yeah, I mean, did you go wandering far afield for the Kanto tour, Deb?
I did actually. I went walking around UC Berkeley, and
Mhm.
that
Ooh.
was a lot of fun. I
Yeah.
might go down to Oakland Chinatown or Jack London Square next time, just because I've been walking around the same 10 blocks for the past year.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
makes me nuts.
Mhm.
Well,
I
you
will
got
say though that me and Timmy are real pals now. I'm now much more attuned to his every little variation of meow. So it's like this is the I want to go out meow. This is the I want to snack meow. This is the stop, put your damn phone down and pet me meow. We're
well,
pals.
my cats are like, my world. Oh, he's so cute, Timmy. And I just talk to them all the time, but I'm just worried about, they're getting older. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with them, but they're not young cats anymore. And like every time they'll be like sitting there going like, sleepy. And I'm like, are you all right? Are you all right, Lucy? And like,
How old are they?
they're 9. They're 9. They're gonna be the 9 this year. So, they're not kittens. But I mean they're fine. I just, I'm paranoid because they're the
Right.
only people I talk to all the time and they're not people. So, but I'll tell you, talking about hotels, travels. So I went on a staycation this weekend because I just couldn't bear not to. I just had to leave my apartment. The winter's been very hard. We've been talking about that in our non-public Zooms. But yeah, I went to a staycation at the Highline Hotel where I think Johanna and Brigid stayed, right?
Yes,
For
for Mocha
Oh,
Mocha.
Week.
Della,
Right
that
after
looked
Mocha.
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, it was. It's a fantastic. It was really just fantastic. I mean, had the little bottles and the turn down bed and everything. But let me tell you, when I came back, I thought, I was worried about the cats. I mean, I'm only gone for like 48 hours, and I'm like, I left them some food there. Of course, they're fine, but I'm still like, oh, I hope they're all right. I come home, boy, I was persona non cata. I
Uh-oh.
mean, they are. I mean, Lucy did not even turn around when I walked in.
Oh,
Like she did not even turn around. And like I'll be like, Lucy, come on, girl, come on. Like, no, nope. She not just like,
New phone, who dis?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, and it took her a couple days before she would finally we're friends again. But boy, I mean, I think it's worse with dogs, but there is actually, articles about our pets are so used to having us 24/7 now. If we do go back to work, or, it's going to be very difficult adjustment for them,
Mhm.
and boy, these cats like, woo, I don't want to, if I do go to a con again, I better take the cats with me. I don't know.
You get like one of those strollers with the cats.
Yeah,
Then
Yeah.
you can It can double as a con bag.
Or
Yeah.
snuggly.
They did not appreciate being left behind, I'll tell you. So for overnight. So
Oh, Rocky doesn't like it when I go out for my walk, you know.
yeah.
But the great thing is when I come back, there's a massive celebration every single time.
Ah, that's
Aw,
so good
that's
about dogs. If they're happy, you know it.
Yes, exactly.
so you guys, what's you know what? We've been talking for about an hour, so I think, we should wrap it up. But yeah, what is next? What is exciting? What do we have, new thing coming up that we're excited about that we haven't mentioned yet, or anything? Hobbies, or what's next? Where can we find everybody next? Johanna, you have your article. Anything else here?
Well, what you were talking about community, I started an online book club with some friends. It actually was really interesting. I wanted to talk about that because I have this book. It's The Vesuvius Club by Mark Gatiss, the co-creator of Sherlock. And they did a graphic novel edition. And it's been really fascinating to me to compare how you turn a book into a graphic novel because they took out like half of it. But looking at the different formats and how the transition works and how you work, because they actually did rework it for a new format, I thought was kind of interesting and clever and not just doing. And a lot of people think you can do a straight translation, but working it for each format, I thought was clever. So yeah.
I actually am doing the same thing with that time I got reincarnated as a slime.
Oh, really?
Crazy, I know, but the manga's actually yeah, this is my life now. The manga is actually quite good, and I had the light novel, and I was like, let me pick it up, and I was actually amazed at how much more. It's a pretty basic story, but how much more information is in the light novel. And these novels are very popular, so I feel like I need to read more light novels. So that is something that I'm doing too. Johanna, maybe we can put our heads together on that.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, it's a fun activity. I mean, if people did actually look at what works best in each. I was kind of sad that one of my favorite characters didn't make it to the comic version because I wanted to see what they would have drawn him as.
Hey, who published the graphic novel version?
Oh, this dates from like 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
This was Simon and Schuster UK.
Wow.
I've never heard of this.
2005. Yeah, this was 2005. This was 2000. The interesting thing is that because it's a James Bond parody set in like 1895. Okay, but it's got little. It does have the occasional. Let me find one that's like work safe. Okay, so it does have the occasional illustration. The guy that did the illustrations for the novels then turned around and did the graphic novels.
Oh, so
there's a lot of comparison points there. So
yeah. So it was kind of because I mean, even 15 years ago, that was a bit of a, leap of faith to publish that. So interesting.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Anything else,
yeah, but
Deb?
It would also be interesting to do because Unrigged just came out from First Second, right, as part of their history comics line, their civic
Oh yeah,
focus comics. A lot of those are adaptations of books.
Actually, there's a great one which everybody should read called Fault Lines in the Constitution. That talks about why the Constitution is like, they take specific issues that are mostly modern issues, and then they say, well, this is because this. They go back to the debates around like why the founding fathers wrote it that way in the Constitution, and then they go forward. They say, well, what do other constitutions do, other countries, other states? It's absolutely fascinating, and it's based on a prose book, but honestly, I don't see how you could improve the graphic novel. Those World Citizen comics are really good.
Yeah, but people learn like visually like that so well. It's really such a great series.
Yeah.
Totally.
I mean, we definitely could use more civics education.
You think?
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, I do my movie club live stream podcast, which is tomorrow at 2:00. We are doing, we finished up, I do it with Jimmy Aquino, and we finished up, we had Kung Fu Month, and Deb was on an episode of that, as a matter of fact. And then we did just finished Musicals Month. And so now we're doing comic book movies that were ahead of their time month.
Ooh.
And so
Are you doing Popeye?
We are doing Popeye. Of course we're doing Popeye. And you want to be on Popeye, Johanna?
I can do Popeye, or I can do Howard the Duck.
Oh, well, Howard the Duck, we're probably going to do we're not doing that this month. We're doing Mystery Men tomorrow. So that's our
yes.
Because that was, has such a great cast. It was definitely ahead of its time.
What are the
And,
other movies you're going to be watching?
the other ones are doing a Snowpiercer, which
Mhm.
Bong Joon-ho, I mean, it got a lot of attention, but obviously he blew up afterwards. And then Jimmy picked Snowpiercer, and then he picked the French film based on Adele Blanc Sec. I don't know how you say it. Adele Blanc
Oh,
Sec, by Tardy. So because they made a movie that was really good in French, and
yeah,
so which I haven't seen, so I'm looking forward to watching it.
it's
And
good. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's a nice little eclectic mix. That's
Yeah, and then we're probably gonna then we should do like famous flops, I guess. We should definitely do Hard the Duck. So Johanna, I got you down for that because I haven't seen it since it came out, and that would be interesting to revisit. I just think
Yeah.
revisiting a lot of times revisiting these movies, these comic book movies that had such a reception when they came out. Like I was thinking we might do guilty pleasures. I was like, when's the last time you watched Sin City?
Hmm.
If you were gonna do guilty pleasures, I would be on Xanadu and Can't Stop the Music.
Ah, all right, there we go. We got okay. We so literally Jimmy and I were actually talking about it the other night. Or last night, I guess. And like we started this during COVID. It's a Zoom thing to do, but we love doing it so much. It's so much fun. But then I'm like, are we just gonna keep doing this forever? What about when people go back to work, in 5 years? But yeah, we could do it forever. I mean, there's just no lack of movies to talk about. So yeah, and it's a lot of fun. So that is also on our Comic Speak channel. So make sure you subscribe and hit notifications so you know.
Very cool.
And Deb, anything for you besides your manga splaining?
Oh, I've been binge reading a lot of manga. So I read all of Demon Slayer,
Ooh,
um, Kimetsu no Yaiba.
What did you
Um,
think of it? That is insanely popular, and to be honest, I'm not sure why.
oh, okay. So this is the thing everyone's gonna say about manga. This is the cliche thing to say about any manga you recommend. It gets better over time.
I read like 3 or 4 volumes of it, and I was like, this is like every shonen manga ever. Why there's like zero interesting about this. Why is it so popular? But it is.
Well, here's
So
the
I'm
thing.
obviously missing something.
Um, it does start off pretty dark, and like the protagonist's entire family, except for his sister, gets killed by demons.
In like
Um,
on page 3. I mean, yeah.
pretty much. And then his sole surviving sister has been turned into a demon, and so he's trying to find a cure for her, and she's kind of got this bamboo gag in her mouth because she's ultimately a demon, so if she could eat him too.
that's that costume is the costume like you saw at
Everywhere.
shows, like
Yeah.
the
The
girl
coat
with the
and the girl
thing
with
in her
it. Yeah.
mouth. So, which I'm like, okay,
So
I know.
all right, I know you like it.
it benefits from a very very well done anime, um, but also that how do I put this? I finally got past the part where that's covered in the anime and past the part that's covered in the movie, which was one of the top grossing movies in Japan
Yeah.
period, of all time. Like
Yes.
not just comic movies, but all time.
The highest gross of any movie in Japan. It beats Spirited Away in Japan.
Yeah. I mean, it beats like Titanic and stuff like it. Okay. So I started reading more of it, and now I'm at the part of the arc where that's going to be covered in the second season of anime. And there's some moments that are just surprisingly hilarious. The character development's quite good. There's this moment where they have to dress up like geisha, like women, to try to sneak into this whorehouse, and they do it so poorly and so obviously, and then that's funny. And then the guy, one of the geishas says, "What are you doing here?" And then the boy character says, the head one is my older sister." And then they have this picture of him rolling his eyes and biting his lip, and he looks completely super uncomfortable, and it's drawn in a really funny way. And then the subtitle says, "Tanjiro is so honest, he cannot lie." Like this is the face he makes when he tries to lie. And so there's enough moments like that where you're going, "Oh my god, this is hilarious." but it's nice because it leavens the the head lopping off and
Right.
a lot of characters die. It's very violent and high stakes battles. Um, I think it's just I sat down with the Shonen Jump app and I zipped through the entire series over a period of 3 days.
Wow.
It was that gripping. And so now I get the hype.
Nice.
And
Have
it,
you
it
s-
and it ended, and so there's a nice ending. So if anyone
how,
who's afraid of like getting involved in a manga series and going like, oh, it's gonna go on forever.
how many volumes is it, Deb?
I think it's like 17, 18. I can look
Oh,
it up.
so a manageable number.
Yeah, not like One Piece, which is like up to 90 something, right?
Yeah. Have you seen the film?
I have not. I don't think it's out yet.
They did a showing of it in Florida last month to qualify it for the Oscars, but I think their plan is I know their plan is that they're going to be doing like small showings, subbed and dubbed, like both formats. But they haven't really come up with a schedule for it yet.
Yeah, I think there's like there's over
They
like
have
20, 23 volumes, which you can get through. They're going to sell a box set. But like I said, if you have the Shonen Jump app, you can binge read the whole thing.
Oh, get that.
Shonen Jump back, man, $1.99 a month. It is
All right.
the best deal.
Best deal in comics.
I better get that, man, because I don't
Yeah.
have enough things that I'm not reading.
Or you could just read everything for free on Manga Plus.
Yeah,
But yeah.
But no, we don't.
No, that's legit. It's legit.
Oh, okay.
It's
All right.
legit.
All right. Okay. I knew you
It's
were.
also owned by Shueisha. It's legit.
Okay. Well, you know,
to tell you how many I read, I hit the 100 chapters a day limit.
Oh wow. Yeah. It's not unlimited on Shonen Jump app. You can only read 100 chapters a day.
so you really did binge it.
And it said, like, finally, I was like, oh, no, let's get to the part. And it says, sorry, you've read 100 chapters today. Please come back tomorrow. I was like,
Go out for a while.
It's like the little.
I am hard up for kicks nowadays, aren't I?
I've got a recommendation for a manga that is looking really good. It's called Boys Run the Riot. It's in previews, which is where I found it. Kodansha is going to publish it. And it's about a transgender teenager who feels unhappy in his skin and unhappy at school and gets bullied and everything like that, and teams up with a classmate to form their own fashion line. So it looks really interesting. It looks like almost like an updated Paradise Kiss or something. And it's going to be out in a couple months, and it's 2 volumes. It's going to be like 2 omnibus volumes, so it'll be complete in 2 hardcovers. And that's coming in like May or June.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
So
Who's the publisher again?
Kodansha Comics.
Kodansha.
Yeah.
Check that out.
Oh, you know what you would enjoy reading is Yoshino Zuikara, The Frog in the Well Does Not Know the Ocean.
Yes. I read
That
the first
one
volume of that. Yeah.
It's pretty hilarious.
It's one of those manga that is by a mangaka, and it's about doing the manga, and it's the guy who did Barakamon. And Barakamon is like a city mouse, country mouse manga about like a guy who's a calligrapher, and he's a rising star, and something happens. And he goes off to this little rural island. It's sort of like Green Acres Japanese style, where like he doesn't know anything, and the locals are all smarter than him, but he thinks they're all a bunch of hicks, and they totally take advantage of him. And that manga ran for like a bunch of volumes. And so The Frog in the Well or whatever it's called, Yoshi no something, is about, it's actually kind of autobiographical, because it's that mangaka saying, I want to do manga, but I've never, I live on this little island, I never get off of it, and he's doing all this fantasy stuff, and his editor says, why don't you do a manga about your island, so it's like literally, here is a manga about making this manga.
Because of volume 2, there's a scene where he has his first book signing in Tokyo, and he's so neurotic, it's hilarious. And
I don't think I've read volume 2.
Book signing will relate to everything he goes through.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, there's a lot to. Oh crap! There goes my phone. All right, there's a lot to read, ladies. I think we're about out of time here. So This
Thanks
is
for
great.
watching, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. We actually had, I had people watching for quite a long time. We still have viewers, listeners, thank you very much. Thank you for watching and hanging out with us. We'll do it again. We took a little break of like 7 or 8 months, but we're still here.
Yeah.
So yeah, and don't forget to subscribe. But all right, let's try it. I don't, we have the Zoom lag, so we'll never do it. But until
Okay.
next time, we are
For
four women in a hotel room. That's terrible. Well,
I'm sorry.
such are the times that we live in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Such are the
We'll
times
get
that we
it
live
better next time.
in. Thank you so much. To sign off, Heidi McDonald, The Beat, comicsbeat.com, on social media, Comics Ace.
Deba Oki on Twitter as well.
Brigid Ellerson, Good Comics for Kids, smashpages.net, and yeah, ICV2 and Publishers Weekly too.
Johanna Draper Carlson, comicsworthreading.com, and Johanna DC on Twitter.
There you
Thanks,
go.
everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching. Until next time. And